Throughout this series, we've talked about clarity, obedience, and daily rhythm, what it looks like to walk with God personally. But long term stability usually involves more than private effort. Scripture consistently shows that formation deepens in shared space. Sometimes sharpening isn't just correction, it's a better perspective. Someone explains a verse you've read for years, and you see depth you missed. Or someone shares what God has been working on in their life, and from that story, something in you wakes up. Not because they confronted you, but because clarity spreads. This doesn't require a crowd. Often it's one or two people you can speak honestly with. Gathering is intentional reinforcement. We meet to stir one another toward love and good works, and to encourage one another. That includes shared worship, teaching, prayer, and song. On the surface, especially early in faith, this can feel like unnecessary effort, particularly when staying home feels easier. But Scripture shows a consistent pattern. Perspective shifts in the presence of God. In Psalm 73, Asaph was frustrated, bitter even, but when he entered the sanctuary, clarity returned. But when I thought to how to understand this, it seemed to me a wearisome task. Until I went into the sanctuary of God, then I discerned their end. Gathering didn't change reality, it reoriented his perspective. I've seen that shift personally, walking in distracted or frustrated and leaving clearer than I expected. Over time, that pattern becomes clear. Scripture calls believers to test everything and to hold fast what is good. Discernment isn't a private preference, and it isn't blind trust in a leader either. Not every group will be the right fit in every season. People have different depths and different ways of communicating. Gathering doesn't require adopting someone else's lifestyle, and faithfulness is obedience to your own assignment before God. Now, these Jews were more noble than those in Thessalonica. They received the word with all eagerness, examining the scriptures daily to see if these things were so. The Bereans were commended because they received teaching eagerly, but examined the scriptures daily to see if it was true. The same principle applies beyond in person gatherings, online sermons, and even this content. Everything is weighed against scripture. Rhythm ultimately matters more than rigid scheduling. This isn't about volume, time of day, or matching other people's patterns. Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. Community strengthens clarity, but it never replaces submission to the word. This is often called the Great Commission. These are among the final instructions Jesus gave his disciples before ascending. He didn't frame faith as something to preserve privately, he framed it as something that multiplies. As personal clarity deepens, growth naturally extends outward. A disciple is simply a learner and a follower of Christ. Making disciples doesn't begin with platforms or leadership titles. It often begins with conversation, sharing the gospel, and walking with someone who wants guidance, and encouraging obedience. You don't need a channel, a stage, or a church position to make a real difference. Every believer has a different reach with different relationships and different influence. Faithfulness begins with using what you've already been given. In Scripture, when someone believed, baptism followed. When someone is saved, baptism is a public identification with Christ and his people. It doesn't create salvation, it is an expression of allegiance. If you've trusted Christ and haven't been baptized, it is the natural next step. This series was never meant to answer every question, it was meant to establish something stable. The wisdom of Scripture isn't exhausted in a course, sermon, or even a lifetime. It's deeper than we can fully search. Oh, the depth of the riches and the wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable are his judgments and how inscrutable are his ways. This is just a foundation. Walking with God is formed over time. From here, we'll begin exploring these themes more deeply and how they apply to specific areas of life. Real challenges that reveal whether a foundation actually holds.